All right, strap in everyone, because today we're going deep on a topic that's exploding right now.
Really exploding.
Pharmacovigilance and post-market surveillance.
Oh, yeah.
And specifically for cannabinoid and psychedelic therapies.
Especially, yeah, as the FDA is having to kind of rethink things with these new treatments
Right.
hitting the market.
In the whole new world.
Yeah.
So maybe, before we even get into it,
Mm-hmm.
can we just define these terms for the listener?
Yeah.
Pharmacovigilance, post-market surveillance.
Sure.
What are we talking about here?
So pharmacovigilance is essentially the science of detecting, assessing, and preventing adverse effects of medications.
Got it.
And then post-market surveillance is the part of that focuses on after a medication is approved and released to the market.
So it's like the FDA gives the thumbs up,
Right.
but then they're still watching it out in the wild.
Exactly.
Because the clinical trials only tell us so much.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that's so interesting about this area is that we need that real-world data.
And especially for cannabinoids and psychedelics. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
think about all those state-regulated cannabis markets.
Yeah.
Millions of people using these products
Yep.
in very different ways.
Yeah.
For different reasons.
That's
It's just this big
A
pool of
a
information.
huge ongoing experiment that we have, and
Right.
obviously not the ideal circumstances.
Not a controlled environment.
But, yeah, very, very interesting from a data perspective.
Very messy data, though, I'd imagine.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, how do we even begin to
Just a challenge.
sift through it all?
Yeah, I mean, we need creative methodologies for sure.
Yeah.
Leveraging, technology and collaboration across different jurisdictions to gather and analyze this information effectively.
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
And every report matters.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Even if you're a doctor who's not part of a specific trial,
Yep.
you're still supposed to, or encouraged at least to,
The FDA really emphasizes.
report any adverse events.
Yeah. It's a collective effort, to kind of crowdsource.
Like crowdsourcing safety data.
Exactly.
Well.
Each report, no matter how small, can help to
Yeah.
paint a more complete picture.
So the FDA is relying on doctors
Yeah.
to kind of contribute to this big safety net.
Yeah, I mean, it's, they have other tools at their disposal, too.
Right.
To kind of proactively manage risks.
Okay.
But reporting is a big one.
Well, what about sorry,
Go ahead.
what about REMS?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Risk evaluation and mitigation strategies.
Risk evaluation and mitigation strategies. Exactly.
Son.
So you can think of that as like a safety net,
Okay.
specifically designed for certain drugs with, known or potential serious safety concerns.
Got it.
So the FDA can require these programs to ensure that the benefits of a medication outweigh the risks.
So it's like an extra layer of
Yeah, an extra layer of protection.
tailored to whatever that drug is.
Precisely. And, for cannabinoids and psychedelics, they might focus on things like, managing psychological side effects.
Which makes sense.
Or making sure that the right patients are prescribed these therapies.
Right.
And that can play a big role in building confidence, both among healthcare providers and the public, right?
Okay.
Because it demonstrates that the FDA is taking a proactive approach to safety and is committed to, responsible integration of these therapies into the healthcare system.
Okay, so that's REM.
That's REMS.
What about labeling?
Labeling. So
the information that doctors and patients
yeah,
all see and look at.
the information that's provided.
How does the post-market surveillance affect that?
It's a dynamic process.
Okay.
So, that initial label is just a starting point.
Okay.
Post-marketing surveillance often reveals new insights
Oh, interesting.
about the drug's effects, both positive and negative.
Right.
And that can lead to the FDA requiring changes to the label
Got it.
to make sure that it's as accurate and comprehensive as possible.
So it's not just like you slap a warning on it?
No, it's a constantly evolving process
Right.
that's integrating new knowledge as it comes to light.
So it feels like it's more than just monitoring for safety. It's almost like shaping the landscape
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
of how these therapies are used long term.
Absolutely. It's about building a solid foundation of evidence, dispelling misconceptions, creating a framework for responsible use of these therapies.
We've covered a lot.
Yeah, we have.
Basics of pharmacovigilance,
The role of the FDA.
post-market surveillance,
Ah,
REMS.
But So much more to explore.
I feel like we've just scratched the surface.
Oh, absolutely.
The world of real-world data is
a big one. Huge
one.
But lots of challenges.
Lots of challenges.
But also a lot of challenges, yeah.
Especially with cannabinoids and psychedelics, given their history.
Yeah, you know,
And unique effects.
they have their own unique set of challenges.
They do.
Which makes it all the more fascinating.
Okay, so before we dive into those challenges, I
Okay.
just want to make sure the listener really understands, like, the gravity of this whole process.
I think that's important.
Like, we're not just talking about checking boxes on a regulatory checklist.
It's about patient safety.
This is about
building trust.
Yeah.
Paving the way for the responsible
Learning.
integration of these therapies into, you know, the fabric of modern medicine.
changing perceptions, shaping policy,
Absolutely.
improving lives.
It's a big deal.
Big deal.
It is. Yeah, it's a huge deal.
It is a huge deal.
It is.
So one thing that I think about a lot is drug interactions.
Oh, yeah.
With all this stuff.
That's a big one.
We're talking about therapies that can have profound effects
For sure.
on the brain,
Huh.
the body. How do we even begin to
Yeah.
untangle that
Yeah.
web?
It's a huge consideration.
Yeah.
Especially for cannabinoids and psychedelics. We need to understand how they interact with other pharmaceuticals.
Like prescription over the counter,
Both prescription and over-the-counter.
herbal supplements,
Herbal supplements, dietary factors, all of it.
everything.
It's a real-world puzzle.
Right, because people aren't just using this in isolation.
Exactly.
They-
People have existing conditions.
They have other conditions.
They're on other medications.
They have medications.
And these things can interact in unpredictable ways.
Yeah, and it's not just like the immediate effects.
Right.
What about long-term?
What about the long-term implications?
Yeah.
How do these therapies impact, liver enzymes that are involved in metabolizing so many drugs?
Right.
Could there be cumulative effects?
Or delayed reaction.
Delayed reactions, all things we need to be thinking about.
It's mind-boggling. It is.
I think about the potential
It's an amazing...
for healing,
for medicine.
but then this huge unknown territory of...
And that's why personalized medicine is so important.
Yeah.
You know, we need to move beyond the general guidelines.
Right.
And really think about more individualized strategies.
So taking into account someone's genetics,
Genetics,
medical history, lifestyle,
all of it.
all the things.
And that requires close collaboration
Yeah.
between healthcare providers, pharmacists, patients, really good communication,
Yeah.
careful documentation
Yeah.
of all medications and supplements.
Thanks a lot.
It is a delicate balancing act, for sure.
And speaking of balancing acts,
yeah.
one of the things I think is so challenging about these therapies is like
Yeah.
the subjective nature,
Absolutely.
the effects.
Totally.
So how do you even define an adverse event?
How do you...
When the experience... You've hit on a key point, yeah.
Maybe so.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not always black and white.
Individualized and hard to measure.
Yeah, I mean, let's take psilocybin, for instance.
Sure.
It's known to induce profound altered states of consciousness.
Right.
Intense emotions, visual distortions, even mystical experiences.
So how do you differentiate between what's therapeutic,
Yeah.
what's just part of the experience, and
what's actually harmful.
it's a nuanced process,
Yeah.
careful patient preparation,
Okay.
skilled therapeutic guidance,
Mhm.
what we call set and setting.
Okay, hold on.
All these things are crucial.
Set and setting.
Yeah, set and setting.
Explain that one.
Yeah, so
Our listener.
set refers to the individual's mindset.
Okay.
Going into the experience, their expectations, their emotional state.
Okay.
Setting is the physical and social environment where the therapy takes place.
Got it.
Both play a huge role.
In shaping the experience and can influence whether it's positive or negative.
So it's not just about the drug itself.
Right.
It's about...
It's about creating the right context.
Right.
The right container for these experiences.
Interesting.
To unfold safely and effectively.
Okay, so then how do you...
And then we also need clear criteria,
Yeah.
for identifying and managing true adverse events.
Right.
Anxiety, panic, even psychotic-like symptoms.
Yeah.
And this isn't just about checking boxes on a checklist. It's about really understanding...
It's about understanding the human experience.
the individual's experience,
Yeah.
their vulnerabilities, and how they're integrating these profound experiences.
Wow, that's a lot for a healthcare provider to, like...
It is. It is. And I think that, training for healthcare providers is going to be absolutely essential.
Oh, yeah.
Many doctors
Absolutely.
might not feel comfortable prescribing these therapies.
Or even know where to begin in terms of like
Or even know where to begin.
monitoring.
Yeah. So we need a massive education and awareness push within the medical community.
Yeah.
It's not just about understanding the pharmacology.
Right.
It's about addressing that historical stigma.
Challenging old assumptions.
Challenging outdated assumptions. Fostering a more informed and evidence-based understanding of these therapies.
Totally.
So it's a big lift.
It's a huge shift.
But it's essential.
It is.
It is.
All right. So let's shift gears a little bit and dive deeper into real-world data collection.
Okay.
We talked about those state-regulated cannabis markets. Huge as a potential source.
Yep.
But
they're not the only one.
Those aren't the only sources.
No. Think about all the people using these therapies outside of formal clinical trials or state-regulated systems.
That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
They hold valuable information, too.
Good.
But accessing it ethically and effectively presents its own unique set of challenges.
Yeah, we can't just send researchers door to door asking people about their psychedelic experiences.
We can't. And,
that would be weird.
Privacy and confidentiality are paramount.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we need to be creative.
Okay.
Maybe work with community organizations, online platforms, patient advocacy groups, reach these populations and collect data in a way that respects their privacy and autonomy.
Meeting people where they are.
Exactly.
Building trust.
Building trust.
So that they feel comfortable.
Yeah, sharing their experiences. And it's not just about surveys or quantitative data. Qualitative research, interviews, focus groups can be incredibly valuable too.
Yeah.
They allow us to go beyond the numbers.
That's the human side.
And capture the lived experiences of people using these therapies.
I love that.
Their challenges.
Yeah.
Their triumphs.
And those stories are so powerful.
They are.
Not just for informing the research, but
shaping public policy.
Shaping policy.
Reducing stigma.
Yeah.
So, each story is a piece of the puzzle.
Right.
Contributing to a more complete understanding of these therapies and their impact on people's lives.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So speaking of ensuring safety and responsible use, let's bring it back to REM.
Back to REMS.
How might these look different for cannabinoids and psychedelics?
So one common element is specialized training for prescribers.
Okay.
So, educating healthcare providers about the unique risks and benefits.
So doctors have the knowledge and skills to navigate this whole thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Another potential element is patient registries.
Okay.
These allow us to track long-term outcomes, identify any emerging safety concerns.
It's like a safety net woven from real-world data.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
And then in some cases, REMS might involve restricted dispensing procedures, limiting the quantity dispensed, or requiring patients to obtain the medication from a certified pharmacy.
Which makes sense, especially for things that have abuse potential.
Potential for abuse or dependence,
yeah.
Right, so it's about...
Equal balancing act.
It's about striking that balance, providing access to these potentially life-changing treatments, while also minimizing the risk of harm.
Absolutely.
And it's important to remember that REMS aren't static.
Right.
They can be modified and updated as we gather more data.
So it's this ongoing process of
ongoing process of evaluation. Adjustment, refinement, always aiming for that sweet spot between access and safety.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, this is something that really fascinates me.
Okay.
The role of post-market surveillance in shaping label.
Shaping labeling.
I mean, that little piece of paper that comes with your medication.
Yeah.
It's just packed with information.
It is.
How does all this stuff we're talking about actually influence that?
It's a dynamic process. Think of it as a living document.
Okay.
That initial label, approved at launch, reflects the knowledge we have at that moment.
Okay.
But as real-world data pours in, that knowledge base expands.
It's like an ongoing...
It is an ongoing conversation between
the research,
clinical practice, the FDA, and post-market surveillance fuels that conversation.
Okay.
It can reveal new information about a drug's benefits, risks, long-term effects, even new uses.
Okay, I need an example.
Okay.
Give me an example.
So let's think about Marinol, the synthetic THC medication we talked about.
Okay.
It was initially approved for nausea and appetite loss.
Right.
But post-marketing surveillance and further research revealed its potential for chronic pain management.
Oh, interesting.
So the FDA approved a new indication for Marinol,
Okay.
expanding its use.
So it's not just about, like, adding warnings or tweaking dosage.
No.
Sometimes it's about
Sometimes it's about
unlocking new applications
unlocking entirely new applications.
for existing drugs.
For existing drugs.
Wow.
And it's not limited to just expanding indication.
Right.
We might uncover new side effects, drug interactions,
Mm-hmm.
or even identify specific patient populations that are more susceptible to certain risks.
Oh, wow.
And this information is then incorporated into the labeling,
God.
making it more comprehensive and accurate.
So, I mean, this is impacting, like, doctors,
Absolutely.
prescribing decisions, patients understanding
Absolutely.
the drugs they're taking.
It's about empowering everyone involved,
Yeah.
from healthcare providers to patients,
Yeah.
with the latest and most accurate knowledge.
Okay, so we're living in a digital age.
Right.
Data's flying around everywhere.
It is.
How are we using technology to kind of enhance all this?
That's a great question. And technology is playing an increasingly important role.
It has.
It really is.
Yeah.
So, for instance, imagine mobile apps or wearable devices collecting real-time data on patient experiences.
It's like having a little research assistant
Exactly.
on your body all the time.
Exactly.
Gathering data.
Gathering data.
Okay.
And, this real-time data can help us identify patterns, detect potential adverse events early on, even personalized treatment strategies.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
And it's not just data collection.
Yeah.
It's also, like,
It's also analysis.
analyzing.
Yeah, artificial intelligence.
Right.
Machine learning algorithms are being developed to,
Oh, wow.
sift through these massive data sets,
Yeah.
identify safety signals that might be missed by human eyes, and even predict potential drug interactions.
So we've got, like,
Yeah.
a super-powered detective in the background.
It really is. We're moving toward a future where
Yeah.
pharmacovigilance and post-market surveillance
Mm-hmm.
are more proactive,
More proactive
personalized,
and data-driven
data-driven
than ever before.
This is mind-blowing.
It is. It's an exciting time.
I know. I'm a little overwhelmed.
It's a lot.
In a good way.
It's a lot.
We've covered so much in this episode, but
There's always more.
I know there's still more to unpack.
Yeah, this is a vast and ever-evolving landscape.
Okay, well, let's just take a moment to, distill
Let's distill some key takeaways.
some key takeaways for our listener
Yeah.
before we dive into the next layer. So for our listener who maybe just tuned in or is feeling a little lost in the weeds of all this information,
Totally.
what are the big
picture
takeaways?
I think the most important thing is just recognizing that pharmacovigilance and post-market surveillance are absolutely vital for cannabinoid and psychedelic therapies. They're not just
bureaucratic hoops to jump through.
Yeah.
They're really the foundation
Right.
for building trust, ensuring patient safety, and ultimately unlocking the full potential of these therapies.
It's like building a bridge.
Right.
And then not doing any safety inspections once it's open.
Yeah.
Like, it might look really nice, but
You need
you
to
drive across it.
ongoing monitoring, that continuous feedback loop
Right.
to make sure that these therapies are being used responsibly and effectively.
Yeah, it's not a one and done.
It's not a one and done.
No.
It's a constant process
Yeah.
of learning, adapting, refining our approach.
And it's not just the FDA.
No, it's a collaborative effort.
Researchers,
It's
clinicians, patients.
Technology.
It takes a village.
It does. It does. And we need to kind of move beyond that traditional model of clinical trials
Okay.
and embrace a more holistic approach, incorporating real-world data,
Real-world data.
patient-reported outcomes,
Yes.
the insights of diverse stakeholders.
Oh, God.
It's really about
Working together.
working together to build a robust and responsive system that prioritizes safety and efficacy.
And these therapies have their own
Oh, absolutely.
unique challenges.
They do.
Right. We talked about
subjective
nature of the
the potential for drug interactions the need to address this historical stigma.
Yeah,
these are all things that make pharmacovigilance particularly complex in this area.
Yeah.
But it's also, it makes it incredibly fascinating.
Absolutely.
Because we're constantly pushing the boundaries of what we know, developing new methodologies, finding creative solutions to ensure that these therapies are used safely and ethically.
So before we wrap up,
okay,
I kind of want to touch on something we haven't really explicitly talked about, which is the financial side of things. All this data collection, the analysis, monitoring.
It's not cheap.
Can't be cheap.
No, it's not.
So how do we balance the need for all this?
Yeah, how do we
robust,
balance that with the financial realities?
Yeah, especially for smaller companies who are working with these.
It's a valid concern, and I think it's where we need to be smart and strategic.
Okay.
Maybe we leverage existing data sources like electronic health records, patient registries to streamline data collection and reduce costs.
Okay, so being resourceful. Working smarter, not harder.
Working smarter, not harder. Exactly.
Oh, I like it.
And perhaps there's a role for public-private partnerships. Or even government funding to support these efforts.
Yeah.
Particularly for therapies that, address unmet medical needs.
Right.
Have the potential to significantly impact public health.
Because it's not just about protecting individual patients.
Yeah.
This is about protecting...
It's about public health.
Capital.
It's an investment.
An investment.
In the future of medicine, and the return on that investment could be enormous.
It could be.
We're talking about therapies with the potential to revolutionize how we approach mental health, chronic pain, a whole host of other conditions.
Okay, so as we kind of look to the future, what do you think the future holds for pharmacovigilance and post-market surveillance?
Yeah. What's your physical housing you?
Exciting new world of cannabinoids and psychedelics.
Well, I see a future where these programs are even more proactive, personalized, and data-driven. Imagine AI algorithms sifting through real-time data from wearable devices, flagging potential adverse events before they even become apparent.
Wow.
So
it's
like having a virtual safety net that's constantly evolving and adapting.
Next level.
It is. And that's just one possibility. I think we'll see an explosion of innovation in this field driven by, technological advancements, a growing recognition of the importance of real-world data.
It's a really exciting time to be witnessing this whole...
It's a paradigm shift.
Paradigm shift in medicine.
It is.
Yeah. We're moving towards a future where treatment is more personalized, data-driven. More responsive to individual needs.
And pharmacovigilance and post-market surveillance will be at the heart of that.
At the heart of it all.
Transformation,
Wow.
Ensuring that these powerful therapies are used safely, effectively, and ethically.
On that note of optimism. And endless possibility.
It is an exciting time.
We're going to wrap up this deep dive into the fascinating world of cannabinoid and psychedelic therapy.
This has been a fascinating dive.
We've covered a lot of ground, explored the complexity, and hopefully, spark some curiosity in our listeners.
Hopefully.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
And to our listener, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
On this journey of discovery.
Until next time.
Keep jiving deep. Stay informed.
Stay curious.